Hi, I'm Daniel Findling with Findling Law and thedivorceguy.com. This is part of the Michigan Divorce Education Series, and in this episode, we're going to discuss the top 10 divorce myths. I've been practicing divorce law exclusively for over 25 years. Let's talk about what just is not true. Michigan, like most states, is a no-fault divorce state. And the first myth is just because a state is a no-fault divorce state does not mean that fault won't play a role in a divorce. The no-fault statute simply says that you don't have to plead a specific ground for divorce. In Michigan, it's simply that there's been a breakdown in the marriage and there's no likelihood that the marriage can be preserved. That is the no-fault ground for divorce. But fault can play a role in property division, it can play a role in alimony, and in limited circumstances, it can play a role even in child custody. Now let's be practical here. Fault typically doesn't play a major role in a divorce case, but it can. I've had a case personally in the Court of Appeals that awarded my client a significantly larger portion of the marital estate because of the wrongful conduct of a spouse. Myth number one, fault matters. Now, myth number two really is almost a play on myth number one, because abandonment was a traditional ground for divorce before the enactment of the no-fault divorce statutes across the country. However, abandonment is not a crime. Now, if a spouse abandons another spouse or leaves him or her high and dry, it could play a role in property division, fault. It could play a role in spousal support because of the needs of the parties. And certainly, abandonment or desertion could play a role in a child custody proceeding if, in fact, a spouse left without the children, or the child, as the case may be. However, abandonment in and of itself is benign. It does not play a role in a divorce case as it relates to a ground for divorce, and it certainly is not a crime. Myth number three, adultery does not matter. We've already learned from, myth number one, that fault can play a role in the award of property and alimony or spousal support. So adultery, to the extent that the breakdown of the marriage relationship was caused by an extramarital sexual contact or an affair, by a paramour, by the ultimate betrayal, it matters. It's also a crime in Michigan. Adultery is on the books as a felony, punishable by more than 1 year in jail. Now, I get a phone call a week. Well, how do I prosecute my husband or my wife for committing adultery? And the fact is you can't, because just because it's on the books doesn't mean it's enforced. It's not. It does provide a lawyer, though, the opportunity to have their client, when asked about a sexual relationship with someone outside the marriage, to take the Fifth Amendment, because you have that constitutional privilege to do so. So while adultery may not matter for the ground for divorce, while it may not be prosecuted as a crime, to the extent that it's a cause of the breakdown of the marriage relationship, it certainly can matter because fault matters. All right, the next myth, child support. There are a lot of individuals that can't or choose not to pay child support for a variety of reasons. And they also believe that a court can suspend his or her parenting time for failing to pay child support. It's an absolute myth. If you fail to pay child support, the court can do things like suspend your driver's license, revoke your passport, even in extreme cases, throw you in jail, but they cannot deny you the opportunity or the right to see your child. Child support and parenting time or visitation are unrelated, they're mutually exclusive, and to think otherwise is an absolute myth. Myth number five is that a child can decide with which parent he or she wants to live with. It's simply not true. Now, that doesn't mean that a child's preference isn't important. In Michigan, one of the 12 best interest factors is the reasonable preference of the child. If the child is of suitable age and maturity to express a preference, he or she is going to be heard by the court. But rest assured, a child does not make a decision what's in the best interest of the child. That's the parent's job. And when the parents can't agree on what's in the best interest of the child, a court will decide. Sometimes myths take a long time to die. And in this myth, the notion that mothers always get custody, it's simply not true. When I started to practice law about 25 years ago, it was true. That is, only in extreme circumstances, mothers got custody of the children because they were presumed to be more capable and more fit while a father was working to take care of the children. However, it's not true anymore. It's an absolute myth. When a father is a good father and a mother is a good mother, they're similarly situated. There's absolutely no reason or no preference given to a mother over a father. Myth number 7. Property is always divided equally. 50-50. We're a 50-50 state. Simply not true some of the time. What do I mean by that? Well, in Michigan, property acquired by reason of the marriage, that's property that you earned during the marriage, not necessarily gifted or inherited, that's generally separate property, but property acquired during the course of the marriage or by reason of the marriage is marital, and we divide it. And it's divided equitably. There's a number of factors. The case is Sparks versus Sparks for those that really want to look it up. But equitably means fairly. But fairly is not always equal. Take, for example, a 10-year marriage with $1 million in property acquired during the marriage. But the parties haven't seen each other, well, 6 months after they got married. They separated and they went their separate way. Would it be fair to divide that property equally? Of course not. Now, in most cases, even though there's outlier examples, it is fair to divide property equally. So it is a myth that we're a 50-50 state, but it's not uncommon for property to be divided equally in a divorce. This one's going to be controversial for some lawyers. Myth number 8, a collaborative divorce is typically cheaper. It's an absolute myth. In fact, collaborative divorces are often more expensive than a traditional divorce. What is a collaborative divorce? A collaborative divorce is sort of like this notion of conscious uncoupling, right? The Gwyneth Paltrow divorce. We're going to bring in therapists and psychologists and financial planners and try to find a mutually exclusive and beneficial mechanism by which we divorce. Think about that. How many people are you hiring in order to accomplish the goal of divorcing you? A therapist, financial advisors, lawyers. In most cases, a collaborative divorce is expensive. And in many cases, a collaborative divorce is a waste of time. Now, I know it's controversial. I know that for some people, a collaborative divorce is wonderful. But in my experience, it's an absolute myth. Only women get alimony. It's simply not true. It's an absolute myth. Now, traditionally, when women were homemakers and men were out of the workforce, it wasn't uncommon for only women, or for the majority of time, women to get alimony. But in these modern times, women are as successful or more successful than men in many circumstances. And even in some circumstances, we have men who are stay-at-home fathers and women who are primary wage earners. It is simply a myth that only women get alimony. In fact, men often get alimony as well when there's a disparity of income and a longer-term marriage. When alimony is ripe, men are just as likely to get alimony as women. Myth number 10 is my least favorite myth of all. If you don't listen to me, if you don't settle, it's going to be war. I'm going to make your life a living. The fact is that this type of leverage, trying to be exercised by one spouse to get what they want, is improper. Everyone has a right to be happy. Everyone has a right to be heard. And you have a right to competent legal representation. Never rely on your spouse for legal advice. They don't have your best interest. If they're telling you that if you don't do what I want, it's going to be war, they're scared. And when they're scared, they're trying to pressure you to get what they want. That's what you have a lawyer for. I'm Daniel Findling with Findling Law and thedivorceguy.com, and this has been the top 10 divorce myths. Let it be our privilege to help you. If you have questions or concerns, feel free to contact me. I've placed my number on the screen. I'd love to talk with you. We have a wonderful support team here as well that can help you navigate your situation. I also want to invite you to look at our other videos on Michigan divorce. I entitled it the Michigan Divorce Education Series. We provide more free information on divorce than any other law firm. And many times people ask me why I do this. Why do I give away so much information? Well, the fact is, it's not knowing the law that makes you a good lawyer. It's the application of the law. We know what we're talking about. We want to help you. Let it be our privilege. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and found this video meaningful and educational. And of course, I'd really be appreciative if you'd like, comment, or subscribe. It helps us promote this channel and help people just like you. I'm Daniel Findling. Thanks so much. Michigan Divorce Education Series. Take a look. I hope you like it.